just torn apart. And as difficult as it is to say, that's why so many people, and some in this audience, and I apologize for having to say it, need to provide DNA samples to identify the remains of their children. Think of that. It's why trauma surgeons have trained for years for these moments. No, it's unlikely that someone shot with a high-powered assault weapon will make it long enough for the ambulance to get them to the hospital. It's why these scenes of destruction, resembling nothing like a weekend hunting trip for deer or elk. And yet we continue to let these weapons be sold to people with no training or expertise. Case in point, America has the finest fighting force in the world. We provide our service members with those lethal weapons on earth to protect America. We also require them to receive significant training before they're allowed to use these weapons. We require extensive background checks on them and mental health assessments on them. We require that they learn how to lock up and store these weapons responsibly. We require our military to do all that. These are common sense requirements. But we don't require the same common sense measures for a stranger walking into a gun store to purchase an AR-15 or some weapon like that. It makes no sense. Soldiers didn't be banned. They were banned. I led the fight in 1994. Then under pressure from the NRA and the gun manufacturers and others, that ban was lifted in 2004. In that 10 years it was law, mass shootings went down. When the law expired in 2004, and those weapons were allowed to be sold again, mass shootings tripled. They're the facts. I'm determined to ban these weapons again, and high-capacity magazines that hold 30 rounds, and that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes.
On the south lawn of the White House.
We're going to stop until we do it. There's another thing we should do. We should have safe storage laws requiring personal liability for not locking up your gun. The shooter in Sandy Hook came from a home full of guns and assault weapons that were too easy to access. Weapons he used to kill his mother and then murdered 26 people, including 20 innocent first graders. If you own a weapon, you have a responsibility to secure it and keep it under lock and key. Responsible gun owners agree. No one else should have access to it, so lock it up. Have trigger locks. If you don't, and something bad happens, you should be held responsible. I have 4 shotguns. 2 are mine and 2 are my deceased sons. They're locked up, lock and key. Every responsible gun owner that I know does that. We should expand background checks to better keep guns out of the hands of felons, fugitives, and those under domestic violence restraining orders. Expanded background checks are something that the vast majority of Americans, including the majority of gun owners, agree on. My fellow Americans, none of what I'm talking about infringes on anyone's Second Amendment rights. I've said it many times. I support the Second Amendment. When guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America, let me say it again. Guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States. More than car accidents, more than cancer. And over the last 2 decades, more high school children have died from gunshots than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. Think of that. Then we can't just stand by. We can't let it happen any longer. With rights come responsibilities. Yes, there's a right to bear arms, but we also have a right to live freely, without fear for our lives, in a grocery store, in a classroom, in a playground, at a house of worship, in a store, at a workplace, a nightclub, a festival, in our neighborhoods, in our streets. The right to bear arms is not an absolute right that dominates all others. The primitive place for living in a community with others as being neighbors, of being fellow citizens, is that we obey the laws and customs that ensure that what the framers called domestic tranquility. That's what civilization is. That's what we have been at our best. That's what America must always be. a place where we preserve the rights but fulfill our responsibilities. I know this, there can be no greater responsibility than to do all we can to ensure the safety of our families, our children, and our fellow Americans. When I spoke to the nation after Uvalde, I shared how a grandmother who had lost her granddaughter gave me and Jill a handwritten letter. We spent 4 hours, almost 5 hours with them. And I read it. It reads, quote, "Erase the invisible line that has divided our nation, to come up with a solution and fix what is broken, and to make the changes that are necessary to prevent this from happening again," end of quote. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. Today I want to thank those in Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, who erased that invisible line dividing our nation and moved us forward on gun safety. It's an important step. And now we must look forward. We have so much more work to do. And I might add, there's $75 million in there for mental health reasons, a whole range of other things I'm not going to take time to go into today, but it's important. May God bless all of us with the strength to finish the work left undone. And on behalf of the lives we've lost and the lives we can save, may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
On the south lawn of the White House, President Biden delivering remarks about the recent gun safety law. Also, some remarks by Vice President Kamala Harris and Garnell Whitfield, whose mother was killed in the Buffalo, New York mass shooting, and Dr. Roy Guerrero, a pediatrician at Uvalde, Texas Memorial Hospital, Uvalde Elementary School, the site of another recent mass shooting. January 6th committee returns for its 7th hearing. Watch as they examine the role extremist groups played in the attack on the U.S. Capitol and their relationship with the Trump White House. Watch the hearing live Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on C-SPAN, C-SPAN Now, or online at cspan.org. You can also visit our website at cspan.org/January 6 to watch previous hearings and other videos related to that day. C-SPAN, your unfiltered view of government.
WCSP-FM, Washington.
Coming up this morning on Washington Journal, author and law school professor Frank Buckley joins us to talk about his new book, Progressive Conservatism, How Republicans Will Become America's Natural Governing Party. And later, author Ellis Coase on his new book, Race and Reckoning, From Founding Fathers to Today's Disruptors. As always, you can join the discussion with your calls, texts, and tweets.
By most accounts, the recent Safer Communities Act passed by Congress, signed by President Biden, is the most substantive gun violence law enacted since 1994. But even yesterday's White House event showed there's still many people dissatisfied with government efforts to end gun violence in their communities. Good morning. It is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. Welcome to Washington Journal. We'll start the program this hour asking you, how is your community impacted by gun violence? The lines are set aside regionally. If you're in the Eastern or Central time zones, the line is 202-748-8000. Mountain and Pacific, it's 202-748-8001. You can send us a text, that's 202-748-8003. Tell us your name and where you're texting from. Also, we're on Facebook, and you can send us your thoughts on Twitter and Instagram at CSpanWJ. And we'll show you some of President Biden's comments at yesterday's event marking the passage of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We'll also hear from Maryland Governor Larry Hogan and how the recent Supreme Court ruling in a New York gun law has affected the state of Maryland, what the state of Maryland is doing. And we'll also talk about gun violence in cities. I just want to hear from you, your community, cities and towns. How has gun violence impacted your communities? There certainly are a fair amount of Discussions about gun violence in cities on the campaign trail, and certainly becomes a subject of too much.
The capital is translated into the monuments, translated to societies. It's translated into the Kennedy Center outreach. It's translated into the Federation of Grims, and it's translated into the original U.S. And it's not just gun violence. It's when Chris Evans from the Fantastic Four used to sing in their songs, "Who dropped the bomb?" And he'll say, "They'll drop the bomb on me." Here's the song. If I can get it real quick. This is the album. It's not a party.